So good to see so many of you here in the room. Warm welcome to the second annual OAAA 4As Future Forum. Yes? Again, so good to see so many of you here. I think we might have a few more people coming, so it's gonna be nice and cozy, but hopefully we'll be able to enjoy and network some as well. So like I said, this is the second year we're doing this event. Last year was our inaugural forum, and it's an idea that Ashwini and I actually come up with over breakfast. Maybe one of the best ideas we've ever had. And last year was a tremendous success. So we really wanted to do it again because it's really sparked important conversation about out-of-home's evolving role in the marketing mix. So this year we wanted to go bigger, and we definitely did. We have more voices, more ideas, more collaboration across brands, agencies, and media partners, all focused on the future growth of our medium, out-of-home. And for those of you who may not know OAAA, we are the National Trade Association for Out-of-Home Advertising, and our mission is to protect, promote, and advance out-of-home and the industry. From government affairs and work in Washington and on a state level, to standards and research, creativity, innovation, and thought leadership. And we're working every day to strengthen out-of-home's position in today's media landscape. And this partnership that we have with the 4As, our sister association in a sense, really reflects that shared commitment to champion a medium that is data-driven, creative, and deeply human in how we connect with brands and agencies. So thank you again for being here and for your continued support and for helping us shape what's next for the industry. We have a really fantastic program that we're super proud of today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashwini Karandikar from the 4As.
Thank you, Anna. Well, first off, Olivia, Anna, Diksha, everyone from Omnicom, Jill, thank you so much for helping us get this absolutely gorgeous space. I don't see Mara, but thank her a million times from me. And thanks to all of you for taking time, middle of the week, showing up here in such big numbers. There are about 100 more expected. We're like, well, as people come in, whatever, hopefully we'll have a very, very packed room, like Anna said. So very quickly, for those of you who don't know, I'm with the 4As. The 4As is the United States premier trade org focused on advertising agencies. Similar to the OAAA, the 4As' main goal is advocate for members, to foster talent, to drive innovation, essentially helping our member agencies be set to compete in what they are really working towards. And so together with the OAAA, and Anna and I have now approached the WFA and ANA, and with everyone together, our intention is to keep driving the industry forward, to keep innovating together. I'm quickly going to just run through the program. It's action-packed. We have some fabulous speakers. Our keynote speaker is someone that I've followed forever, and I'm glad she's here and speaking at our event. So the program really reflects the energy and innovation that's driving out-of-home forward. We will cover many topics, including sports and experiential marketing. I think sports really signifies the convergence of anything to do with media, tech, data, and out-of-home, where brands can really connect with culture and fans at the same time. Pharma and healthcare, such a hot growing topic. The 4As just wrapped up an event last week around healthcare marketing. We are speaking about it here as well. Next year, I think Anna and I will do something bigger in that area, just because healthcare, pharma, wellness care, regulated, unregulated, it's such a huge opportunity for everyone. And then boring but market moving, measurement and performance. If you can't measure it, you can't deliver it. And so where we will speak about the new data capabilities that are really helping prove that out-of-home delivers across the entire funnel. It's not just a little sliver of a medium, it's the entire spectrum that out-of-home can really influence. And so through the day, like I mentioned, you are going to hear from some fantastic speakers. And then we'll close the session with a fireside chat that Anna will have with Bob Lord, president of Horizon. I've known Bob for a very long time when he was last at IBM. Really inspirational speaker, fantastic ideas, and I think you're really going to enjoy the closing fireside. We absolutely want to thank our sponsors, Broadsign and Intersection, for helping us sponsor this event, for making this possible, and one more time to Omnicom for making this absolutely beautiful space available. And so with that, I want to kick off our program. And I had started writing a bit about our keynote speaker, and then I was like, I'm just going to read her LinkedIn summary because I will not be able to cover, or I will not be able to do justice. So, Erin Lanuti, so honored that you're speaking here. She's going to be speaking about AI attention and the out-of-home advantage. For those of you who don't know Erin, now you will know her. She's a visionary leader. She operates across multiple fields, emerging technology, corporate growth, data intelligence. She was recognized as the Executive of the Year by the International Business Awards. I think if I were to summarize Erin's absolutely fabulous career graph, it is innovation at every step and really demonstrating the operational excellence for anyone who wants to, follow her lead or not. So Erin, I can keep gushing and talking about you, but I would love to welcome you on stage and get this conference started.
Thank you so much for coming, everyone. It's an absolute honor to be with all of you today to talk about something that's really, really near and dear to my heart, which is how influence is changing. And I think this presentation hopefully is going to open some eyes as to just how profoundly influence is changing and the opportunity that you all have before you. So we're going to talk about how AI is the new gatekeeper, and specifically the opportunity at hand for all of you. So to do that, we're going to go back a while. We're actually going to go back 100 years. So we're going to start with broadcast, which launched in the 1920s, right? And that gave us mass reach. From there, we went to search, which initially launched in the 1990s. Right? Feels longer ago, but 1990s. Later became social media, which gave us engagement, right? So reach, clicks, engagement rates, all that stuff. Then we got to influencers, which gave us authenticity, right? And that really launched in 2005 with YouTube when they first launched creators. And now, in November of 2023, ChatGPT launched, so that gave us AI, right? And June of 2024 launched AI search, right? So just think about how quickly over the last probably 20 years things have especially moved. We started it originally in the 1920s. So let's talk about AI search, right? Most people right now are talking about AI as efficiency, right? And how are you driving efficiency? How are you making it faster, better, cheaper, all the things, right? I really want to focus on AI search. And to do that, I want to start with classic search. So everyone in this room must be aware of Google, hopefully. And if you use Google, right, you go in, you enter your keyword, right? So in this case, I typed best burger, right? Find me the best burger in New York City. And this is actually my search. You'll see it showed me 4 examples of great places I can go to, right? Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. You'll see links to articles, social media posts, all of those things on there, right? So we're all familiar with that. AI search is completely different. So in AI search, I asked the same question, right? And what happened is it scanned its training data. It then went out to the web. It looked at articles. It looks at social media, all of those things, right? And in milliseconds, it came back with this answer, okay? Now, if you guys are paying attention, which I know all of you are, you will notice that not a single one of the recommendations on this screen now are what I saw in Google, right? Did anyone pick that up? Okay, so that's the first thing you'll notice. The second thing you'll notice is the fact that not only did it give me the best burger recommendations, but it told me what to order when I was there, right? It said, hey, order this burger, right? It's the best one, right, at Minetta Tavern. So, like, very, very different. Now, here's the other thing that's different. Every single one of you, if you do this exact same search in ChatGPT, you're going to get a different answer, right? So completely different than search, where all of us would get very similar answers. In this case, it is summarizing all the information, right? And it is giving me these 4 answers that are unique to me. And that's because AI search is curating your very personalized reality, right? So what does that mean exactly? It means everything that you type in to your search engine, it's capturing, right? So every search, not just what you prompted, but what it came back with, and then what you continued to have the conversation with, right? So it knows, you know, I have a child. It knows I've gone to certain locations and asked about restaurants or travel or whatever it is, right? And all of that comes into play when it gives me an answer back. So it's hyper-personalized answer. It is what they call non-deterministic, so everyone will get a different answer, right? And it is really concerning if you are a brand marketer. Because for the first time in history, AI is now a platform. It's a gatekeeper because it is now in control of a brand's narrative, right? Used to be you would go to my brand website to get information about me, right? Now the AI is actually answering based on what it knows, right? And summarizing all of that. So it is gatekeeping the information, and it is choosing what it shares with you and what it doesn't. And if you're a brand and you're not shared, you're invisible. Think about that, right? Invisible. AI is also an audience because now marketers are not just writing copy for everyone in this room. We're now writing for the algorithms and the machines to make sure that we're appearing, right? So huge fundamental changes. Now, if you were following the news this week, you probably also saw the commerce announcement with Walmart. So now there's instant checkout in AI search. Instant checkout. Okay, in a medium that is a brand marketer, I might not even show up anymore. And to just put an asterisk on how profound and big of a change this is, for some of the largest Fortune 50s in the world, their visibility in AI search could be less than 20%. Okay, so they're the biggest brands in the world, and they might only appear 20%. Okay? So this is what is keeping many of my clients up at night, many of your clients up at night, right? Is this fundamental change. Now, here's another key point that's compounding it, right? So about 20% of the time, the AI hallucinates, right? So now I not only have to worry about, oh, am I going to appear, but is it going to get it right, right? That coupled with the fact that there are more tools than ever before to create misinformation, disinformation, and deep fakes, right? We've all seen them. In fact, 2 years ago, I was on a panel with Anna and Can talking about this very topic, right? 2 years ago, you could tell a deep fake easier than you could today, right? Fingers were, a little bit off, right? There were telltale signs. Not anymore. Not anymore. So now, 73% of consumers in the US answered a poll from Reuters in July, and they said, we're finding it harder and harder to tell what's real, what to trust in the news. 73%, 3 in 4 people in the United States are having a hard time understanding what's real and what's fake. And this is your opportunity. Okay? Consumers trust out of home. These stats are unbelievable. Thank you, Jill. And thank you, Outfront Media, for providing them. This is an incredible study, right? It shows out of home is the most trusted medium out there, right? And not just trusted, completely trusted, right? Try getting a consumer to answer that way, okay? The other thing that's really important about this, if you look at influencers and you go back to what I said at the beginning, right? Influencers are about authenticity. They trust you twice as much as influencers, right? Huge opportunity for you. So in a world where consumers can't understand what's real and what's fake, they trust you. So out of home in all of your formats, right? Large format, street formats, precision, experiential, right? They can't skip you, right? You have presence. You are in ballparks, you're in transit stations, right? You're in hospitals, right? We can't skip it. And AI isn't mediating it either. So if I'm a brand, I can get a pure message out there, right? I'm not going to have it stripped out to whatever the AI thinks is the most important. This is a pure message, which is increasingly important. And it's from a medium that consumers trust. So out of home today is your authenticity anchor, right? It is your moment to leverage this medium in new and unanticipated ways that allows you to capitalize and harness the power of real, of trust, in meeting consumers where they are, on the streets, at the ballparks, in all these different places, right? You have a huge opportunity right now. So this is really your moment to shine, right? This is your moment to work with different people, right? To think about your medium differently, the formats, the way it's used. It's an opportunity to help people understand how to use your forum in new ways. So I challenge everybody in this room, right? You have a massive opportunity that most mediums would kill for right now, frankly. We need your help to open the tent, right? To invite more stakeholders in, right? To help them understand the power of the fact that I can operationalize out of home in minutes to hours. I didn't know that before I started working on this presentation. That's huge, huge. The second opportunity you have is to operationalize real, right? Realness matters right now. The younger generation, they can't tell what's real. So for you to have physical presence in locations, in a medium that's trusted, is something to not take advantage of, or to basically think that you guys have, all this space and, people aren't understanding how to use it, frankly. So here's what I would say. As the Chief Innovation Officer of Omnicom PR Group, right, we work with thousands of brands all over the world, okay? We do advocacy work, we do public relations work. For me, having a trusted medium where I can go out to consumers in minutes with an important message that's hyper localized to where an issue might be occurring is huge, right? So let's say I have a product recall I have to convey. AI is mediating my message. It might get it wrong, even worse than mediating my message, right? How can I work with your industry to leverage your assets in new ways, to get that turned on really quickly, to let people know, right? Or what if, let's say there's a flu outbreak, right? And I want to let people know about that in a very specific location. I could turn this on with a QR code to scan to get more information. Another great way to use this medium, right? Again, currently, my field very rarely uses out of home. No one is coming to us and saying, hey guys, we can do X, Y, and Z, right? And we can turn it on in minutes. We are always looking for new formats. In the advertising industry, we worked with them to create advertorials, right? Native advertising. What's the format in your industry that the PR teams and the communications professionals all over the world can leverage this incredible asset that you all have? That's really the opportunity right there. I mean, I'll nominate myself to work with all of you to kind of bring it to life, but I think it's a huge opportunity. So in closing, I just want to challenge all of you as you go through today and the incredible format that they've put together for all of you. Out of home is where stories become real. It's a trusted medium. Now is your time to shine. And other mediums would kill for the opportunity you have at you right now. So thank you.
Erin, unfortunately, we don't have too much time for questions. I do want to reiterate 2 points, and I would love for people to not only follow up with her, but anyone else in this room who's asking the same questions about, come to us with opportunities that span the entire spectrum, not just how to buy or sell out of home, because out of home truly is the medium that has spanned the entire spectrum right now. And the trust and authentication is more real than ever before, because if I see it physically, then it really must be true, because the rest of it is just garbage AI slop. So with that, thank you so much. Really thought-provoking. I'm sure people are going to keep referring it through the day, so thank you so much. All right, to pick up on what Erin said, and I feel like Olivia and I really programmed this on purpose. Our next session is going to be led and moderated by Olivia Austri, and she will be leading a panel that is going to talk about probably the out-of-home event overall, about out-of-home's playbook for global sports marketing. And so, Olivia, if you would like to come on in and bring your panelists and introduce them, that would be awesome.
I would love to. These are everybody's least favorite chairs. If that's the worst part of the day, that's the best part of the day. Hi, everybody. Olivia Oshray from the OAAA. I'm super excited about this panel because I feel like sports is on everybody's mind. And so with that, I would love for my esteemed panelists to introduce themselves.
I am client president at WPP Media.
Ian Dallimore, VP of Digital Growth at Lamar Advertising.
So one thing I'm super excited about with this panel is we have the agency perspective, we have the brand perspective, and then we have the out-of-home media owner perspective, which is great. And then for those of you in the room who don't know, the OAAA recently launched research with the Harris Poll on out-of-home's impact on global sports. I was pretty surprised by the numbers. 90% of people take action when they see out-of-home ads around sports. 61% engage on social media. We obviously know that FIFA is upcoming, and so I wanted to pose the question to all of you because they're saying that FIFA is going to be a once-in-a-generation sporting event here in the US. And so how are you thinking about the opportunity for brands to connect with fans, not just in stadiums, but in cities and communities around it? And anybody can take the lead on that.
Yeah, I'll start on that. Well, go.
Go ahead.
Please.
Okay. I live in New Jersey, so I have a little, little bit too excited about FIFA coming in.
The New York, New Jersey battle here, but okay.
So I think the FIFA is going to be sort of a moment, if you will, locally. But there is a lot of excitement, even just in terms of the ramp up and the ramp off then, and overall from a soccer perspective, becoming part of sort of the cultural phenomena. The way the brands are thinking about it is how do you, not every brand is going to be in stadium or has an integration in the game. The way our brands are thinking about it is how do you surround that excitement How do you surround that ramp up? How do you make sure you're showing up authentically? How do you celebrate the wins, right? Like there's a real opportunity to be part of that chatter as the games are being played or as they're announcing the matches. Like, how do you become part of that celebration? So again, there are many different ways the brands can show up, but it's how do you add value for the fan experience? How do you make sure that you're part of the stories that are going to unfold as part of the games? That is really where they're thinking about how they can integrate very seamlessly into the cultural phenomena that it will be.
Yeah, very similar approach for us. Obviously, we knew FIFA was coming, so DirecTV got in with Major League Soccer and expansion club San Diego FC, top 3 club expansion team right now in that. And that's our way. We're not a FIFA partner. It's hard for us to get into FIFA, but surrounding the community that you're talking about there, being authentic, the experiences in the stadium, out of the stadium, through social, as well as the community, and then being bilingual. We recently were out there. There's a match against Cholo, one of the top clubs in Tijuana. We took all of our messaging, all of our influencers, our creators, and we converted that to in language to feel a sense of that community and bring our product to them to show we care and riding that momentum of soccer right now, which is a lot of the content that's watched on DirecTV.
Yeah, I think from the out-of-home perspective, for all media owners in the room, I think it's imperative, right? The fans, the community, the consumers, they're gonna be looking out for it. And the majority of us, I don't know about the two of you, but I didn't get my ticket passes that I thought I was gonna get. But everyone's gonna be looking for that. They're gonna be looking for the authenticity of the brands where they show up. And I think oftentimes we kind of chill in the back, but this is a scenario for the out-of-home industry as a whole to really put our best foot forward and really dominate a city. And look, it doesn't take much. And again, I'm not here to knock the feed or the scroll or the algorithm, but at the end of the day, if a brand just does 10% and shows up in a market, it looks like they own it. And again, that authenticity of the consumer, they're gonna look out for it. And they're gonna seek out the brands that are with their favorite clubs, with their favorite countries. And I personally think it's a massive miss if brands don't adopt, not just internally within the stadiums, and I'll even go as far as to say not just in the 11 host cities, but more importantly, across the entire US and Mexico and Canada. Show up, because everyone is going to be watching. So how do you differentiate yourself as a brand? And in my opinion, it's all of us collectively, media owners in the out-of-home space.
Yeah, I was going to double down on what Ritu said around authenticity. Like, how integral is out of home to that strategy as you're starting to have those conversations now?
I think Aaron talked about it a little bit. Like, it can be a logo slap, right? If you're going to show up, either you're adding some value, so whether it is where you should be going for the matches, or real-time stats, or fun experiences, like you have to add some value to that fan experience. So that is definitely part of it. And if you can't, it's going to feel more like a logo slap. It's going to feel like an interruption. And you want to be more seamlessly integrated into the value proposition. But it can't be a celebration. It can have fun with it. Like, it doesn't have to be all about just like being able to share information, if you will. So I think, from immersive experiences, at the games themselves, or to your point about bars and pubs where people are going to definitely come together to watch, how can you be part of all of those different kinds? And each brand is going to have a different way in, but how can you be part of that?
Yeah, and it's like what Erin was talking before about too, which is just the fastness that you can get stuff up with digital out of home. Ian, I wanted to just ask you about that in terms of like updating creative in real time and scores and whatnot. Like, how are you thinking about that for your partners?
Look, I think we've been doing it for a very long time. As I was prepping for this, I was thinking back to the first ever live dynamic campaign we've ever done as an industry, and at Lamar specifically, but we stream live scores for ESPN. Now that's kind of table stakes. It's the obvious. So I think integrating in that fan experience, I think a lot of people, and I'll shift from just World Cup if I may, but it's interesting to see in the collegiate side of things where, again, corporate headquarters is in Baton Rouge, and LSU does a phenomenal job, and every NIL athlete, they show up on out of home. And you can replicate that in any market, USA, collegiate football, is how do we dynamically have that player? Maybe the brand is associated to that player. How do we then take dynamically streaming their live tweets? Or how do we have a trash talking moment? But the beauty of out of home, and I think that people often forget about, is it is a live screen. We can tap into simple APIs for live scores. That's easy. But how do we get creative with this? How do we have a takeover of an athlete of one of these club sports or a brand and their club and have them take over? I mean, look, they take over TikTok and others. Why not have space within the community and the marketplace to utilize that? So I think if you're not utilizing dynamic content during this moment and all sports moments, it's really kind of, the fans are like, I feel like you could have given me more.
Yeah, I'm glad that we pivoted a little bit away from FIFA because there's a lot of sports things that are happening.
It's a long time away.
Yeah, it's going to be here sooner than you know it. But Josh, you had mentioned DirecTV's relationship with the MLS, but you also have a big college partnership too. And so how is Out of Home a part of that, and how are you thinking about that? Because it's really like sort of the college community is very ingrained in their college community.
Absolutely, and Out of Home goes beyond just what your team is doing too. When you think about in-stadium, you think about NIL as a big piece, is connecting with those fans nationally. Yes, we have a 6-college deal to give us presence across the country. The Ohio State University, I don't want to get in trouble with them. Duke, UNC, yep, go Buckeyes, I have a child there. Duke, UNC, Oregon, Texas, and Army for our commitment to active military and veterans of the armed forces there. And Out of Home for us is authentically connecting with them, getting in their mindset. We have activations when we go there. We're in stadium. We're bringing the athletes equitably, both across men's and women's, and bringing those athletes forward, telling the stories, reaching those fans where they are. But we also use that as, we're a brand that doesn't have brick and mortar. We don't have stores. You can't go in and touch and feel your product. So our immersive experiences allow us to bring the product to the consumers firsthand, to touch it, feel it. And also when we're at games, I'm on the road tonight going down for an activation. When they're there tailgating, we're there bringing the pregame shows to them, we're there bringing the rivalries there, showing it to them, and then go in the stadium, they feel our brand, they feel it outside at home as well. Got some data back yesterday that it's also working. We're seeing a lift in the markets where we have these activations versus like-kind markets like a Baton Rouge with LSU. So our investment there is playing off. That's our form of Out of Home.
And I would just say on the brand activations at the games themselves, like Out of Home can be used to create a lot of FOMO, right? Like if you know there are brand activations, they're only there for a few hours, to create, again, that urgency and that shared sort of passion for the game, I think that is done so beautifully with Out of Home.
But it has to be done, like it's awareness, it's education, conversion. Obviously, we all want conversion, but it's a hard sell there. Where we use that is get them into consideration check, but we do have conversion as well, where customers have given us their phone and say, I'm going into the game, I don't feel like switching now, can you have someone call me? And we do that, but you have to get in their mindset. You have to channel their energy and their passion for their fandom.
But isn't it crazy that we just heard Aaron talk about it, and the most authentic, trusted medium is Out of Home, but yet brands continue to go down the path of social others, and I'm not knocking and saying it's a bad thing, but I think integrating the two, creating that FOMO is what I love more than anything in the world. But it's imperative because the consumers are very skeptical, like even with NIL deals. Like you're like, do you really hawk that product?
Consumers are savvy, so that's where it has to, you put it in their voice versus, it's brand, tone, and feel, but it's in their voice so it cuts through the clutter.
Yeah, and it's almost like you know the questions.
We prep for this.
Well, the panel right after ours is on brand activation and experience, and so I think we're going to hear more on that, and I agree. But the one thing I did want to talk about with you all too is just how we talk about Out of Home as like this plus, right? It's a media amplifier. Like you don't want to just do Out of Home, you want to do Out of Home plus everything else. So a little bit about what you're talking about as well, but like from a social perspective, a lot of times people do social in a social bucket instead of thinking about social plus Out of Home as well. So I just sort of want to get your thoughts on that too, specifically for sports and activations as well.
To me, plus still feels like it's on the side or something additional. I feel like when I think about Out of Home or how we talk to our brands about it, it's the only sort of unifier if you think about from a very public shared canvas perspective, right? Like there is nothing else that comes anywhere close to that. So to me, it's more of a unifier as part of, in such a fragmented landscape that I know we all talk to our clients about. This is one of the things that can be that visual anchor. It can be that sort of unifier and amplifier to things you're doing in other places and spaces. So to me, I think thinking about it in that way with our clients actually helps from a storytelling perspective, also thinks about how you create this as part of the journey and the passion of what you're trying to then convey versus something that should be thought about separately here or additionally here. But I think it's making it more part of that overall media sort of conversation.
And I would say for DirecTV, it makes sense is we want to get people beyond thinking you just watch your content at home, on the go. How many of you here are watching a show on your phone, commuting to work, flying, wherever you are? Reinforcing that, being out of home reinforces our message of watch your content wherever you are.
Yeah, and I'm going to go like way back to some cool campaigns we've done because I think that's imperative. It's not a plus, it should be the focal point. I mean, literally the size of the medium, whether it's a small screen at a gas station or all the way to a colossal hand paint or a massive out front or Lamar giant billboard, it should be the driver. So I'll quickly share this one, and it like popped in my head a couple of seconds ago. Reebok did this really amazing campaign with digital out of home in Detroit and Toronto, and I'm not a hockey person, so lo and behold, in the South, we don't have much of it. But it was cool because what Reebok did was they knew the feud between the two teams. So they basically had their three best players feud with the other three best players while having Reebok sit there across. So the Toronto Maple Leafs had full access to all the digital screens in Detroit and vice versa in Toronto. And it was a phenomenal experience. And it wasn't about selling a product. It was ultimately getting them then to go to the feed, at the time Twitter, now X, to then learn more. So I love the idea. It doesn't have to be the afterthought. It should be the focal point that then drives you to other media types.
And we've talked a lot about that too, on the afterthought. And so, obviously I think, we talk about as well out of home having sort of this like renaissance or resurgence. Like, I just would love to hear from each of you, like, how are you seeing that play out in the conversations that you're having with clients or partners or internally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's sessions like these. I love it's like you guys are like my new best friends here. I think it's imperative. It sounds silly, but the education side, I think the collaboration across media owners. I know I'm at fault my 20th year at Lamar, and I constantly talk about this collaboration amongst media owners, then coming to the agencies and the brand, but more importantly, like the DirecTV side of things. Like there should be an entire conversation around how to educate and come to DirecTV and their agency partners and say, hey guys, all right, we know you have this sponsorship and it's an activation, or you have this activation at NASCAR. How do we collectively come together and collaborate from the beginning so it's not that plus? So as simple as the term is just like come in and sell, like stop selling. Understand what the partnerships is. It's why I'm so passionate about sports, is because I think it's what physically brings everyone together, and out of home is in that physical landscape. So it's an easier conversation for brands. So I think just educating the brands, the agencies, pre a campaign even is thought of. It's like, let's collaborate. We have World Cup. We've been talking about it for 6 months now. It's another 3 to 6 months away. We should be talking about MLB next year. We should be talking about college football, understanding the partnerships, and then just having these collaborations. And again, that sounds very simple, but it's just not done in our space enough.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we talk a lot with our clients about the changing landscape, the fragmentation, AI, all these things, and sometimes we forget like how some of the more older established mediums are also completely changing. And the opportunity is becoming so different there. So I've had the luxury of working with some really smart people, like I see Cecilia here, Michael Lieberman, and they have really helped me educate our clients, jump in, show them creatively what we can do for their campaigns, even before it becomes a campaign. Like, how can we have out of home just be part of the narrative? And right from the beginning, like, think about how this campaign can come to life for that. I think it's important to have that. I mean, we talked about if you don't, then you get excuses like, oh, we didn't think about the creative, or we really think the creative will be a big lift because we want to get it right, and we just don't have the time for that. So in order for us not to get those excuses, I think it's important to constantly be educating and sharing, just like the stats we just saw, like sharing those kinds of research and reports with our clients.
Yeah, and you want to go beyond transactional. You want to build a community. What's in the community? Out of home, in all forms there. So that is the best way to get yourself ingrained and show that you care and you value the community and you want them to be part of your world as well. So be out there, be forefront there. Obviously digital mediums, linear, still big spenders there. But when you're in those markets and talking to them and positioning your product that you understand what's going on in their community, you're gonna deliver that lift in the ROI that everyone's asking for.
Awesome. Well, I want to end with a little bit of inspiration, knowing that you've already been planning for FIFA for a while, but still not here yet. Heading into 2026, was there any great creative out-of-home campaigns that you recently saw in the sports space that, or generally, it doesn't even have to be sports, that really inspired you?
And again, this is old, but I wanted to tie it into FIFA and soccer. Arguably the greatest show of all time, raise of hands, Ted Lasso, Apple TV, yeah? Thank you. I want to emulate that guy's sneaker game. But what I loved is what they did, and one of the kids, Cameron Baxter is his name, was one of the 18 kids that made the U.S. men's national team 4 years ago. And what they did was they, in every single, it is the worst out-of-home creative ever, so I'm not telling the creative people to do this, but if you recall the campaign, it was basically a letter from Ted Lasso, and it was like 80 words, which again, we don't advise, but it was a letter to each one of these kids and uniquely spoke in Ted Lasso's language and said, great job. And that was in Seattle, that was in LA, where each one of these kids were thanked. It wasn't about the out-of-home creative, that was amazing. It was the social amplification that happened and the amount of Instagram, X posts, TikToks, and then just the sheer excitement around this kid just got a message from Ted Lasso to say congratulations.
Yeah, now, that's where sports and culture come together really nicely.
We're fine talking about Apple TV because you can watch it on us, so that's shameless plug there. All you want, yeah, no. But it's exactly right. Campaign doesn't come to mind, but I think it's the one that, again, makes that connection, and that's a really good example of an extending that and that feel-good moment of I was part of it. And that works really well where they're left of I wasn't sold to, I was informed, and they're talking to me. And that's, the programmers do an incredible job of making you understand why you need to watch those shows, getting part of that cultural moment. So getting on that train and being part of that is really important in out-of-home.
I'll end with this one that is top of mind for me. Is Domino's is one of my accounts, and recently, I don't know if you saw this in the press, but after decades, they have refreshed sort of all their assets and everything, all their identity, and it showed up in Times Square on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's Domino's, and once you hear it, you can't forget it. But we got so many calls after people saw it there. Of course, this was in press in many other ways, but that was the one thing that, again, talking about a public canvas, many more people saw it and talked about it. So I'm sure now you're all going to want Domino's pizza, so you can thank me.
Told you to leave us inspired, so you did. Alrighty, amazing. Well, thank you all. This was so wonderful and fabulous, and we really appreciate your time. Okay, and with that, our next panel, I'm going to bring up our next moderator, the one and only Esther Raphael from Intersection.
Hi, guys. All right, we're going to get started on our next panel. I'll let everyone introduce themselves while we get this mic sorted. I'll just introduce our panel topic. Thank you all for being here. Today's panel is about how brands are showing up in the real world and why that matters more than ever. We're seeing a shift where experiences, not just ads, shape how people connect with brands. And out-of-home is playing a bigger role in that, whether it's a launch, a moment tied to culture, or something unexpected in public space. I feel like I'm a teacher and I'm about to tell the class to please be quiet. You don't have to be quiet for me, you have to be quiet for them. Thank you. Wow, should I be a teacher? I feel so in charge. Okay. All right, since I already quieted the class, let's get into it. We got a great group here to talk about how brands are doing that today and how creativity is evolving and what makes something stick with people long after they see it. So without further ado, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm Tori Marlin. I lead Sapphire Experiences Strategy and Marketing for Chase. So we, in the past year, have been at the Olympics in Paris, which was a dream. F1, Sundance, lots of great moments. So excited to talk about experiential and out of home.
Good to be with you, Tori. I'm Jim Norton. I'm CRO at Outfront Media. I am 2 months into the Outfront business, so but a long-time leader in the advertising business. But great to be part of this community.
And gorgeous voice overall. Did I say that out loud? Sorry.
Thank
Hi,
you.
I'm Alex Abrantes. I'm Chief Creative Officer of Iris Worldwide.
And I'm Tim Bateman. I'm a Group Creative Director at 72 and Sunny. I run all the United Airlines work.
We like cheers from the crowd. All right, well, since Jim is new, let's torture him first.
All right, let's go.
In Out of Home, we know that big, bold, smart media is really the driver of our business. And at Outfront, how are you seeing brands take media like billboards or transit and augment those media buys into activations and experiences that really connect with audiences?
Yes. So it's honestly one of the reasons why I came into the out-of-home industry is that opportunity to create those memorable experiences anchored in the heritage of traditional out-of-home, whether that be billboard or transit. I got to shout out Apple TV Plus and the work they did with Severance, award-winning work. The Grand Central activation on that, I mean, it literally won the Cannes Lion. I mean, it is an incredible way in which to take the content of a program, of a show that is Severance, which is about the essentially commute from your personal life to your work life, and activate it in a transit environment. And so we were very, very proud to be part of that. So that's one. I'll stay on transit again because we just did this recently with ESPN and the launch of the ESPN app. And again, bringing mascots from local sports teams and engaging with the community to bring what essentially is the science of app acquisition or app download campaigns and bringing it to life in a community. So two really good examples of taking out-of-home assets and creating experiences.
Awesome. Tim, 72 and Sunny is known for producing iconic creative campaigns for some of the world's biggest brands. What is it about out-of-home that appeals to you as a creative director, and how does the medium bring campaigns to life in a way that other channels like digital just cannot? And I know you have some examples. Olivia gave me a tall order here because let's think about how I'm supposed to use a clicker, hold a microphone, and hold
Take the clicker.
I was trying to get Olivia before. I'm like, Olivia, please come to the front.
I'll take the clicker. I'll click away. Yeah, I mean, out of home is it's the best way to make a statement. You know, I always think like TV's great for telling stories. Digital's great for really targeting people. Social's great for being part of culture. But if you want to make a big statement, if you want to put a flag in the ground, then you just go out of home. It can be seen by hundreds of people, obviously. If you get great PR pickup on a powerful statement, it can be seen by hundreds of thousands. If you get kind of organic social amplification, it can be seen by millions. So it's such a powerful medium for all that. And I did bring an example. Yeah, here it is. As seeing as sports was part of the kind of agenda today, I thought this would be a good example. This stuff's just going up this week, so some mocks in here, but you'll start to see it around soon. So we had noticed that on social, we saw a lot of United flies, a lot of the teams from their main hubs. So we fly the Chiefs, we fly the Browns, we fly the Bears, we fly the 49ers, among other teams in different hubs as well. But we had noticed there were a lot of, the teams would like post these travel shots on their social, and you'd see your favorite player, your favorite team. You'd see a big, beautiful United playing with United branding in the background. And we thought, that's great on social. People can look at it. But what if we turn that into, giant out-of-homes that essentially just, you celebrate the play, you celebrate the team, you celebrate the town, the city. It's massive kind of branding moments for United. Get a lovely big tail out there. And we just kind of intrinsically link ourselves to football via this stuff that already exists out there. And all we're doing is just giving it a bigger stage.
Wow, that's really awesome, creative. I'm just getting to see it first time with everyone else, but I liked what you just said. If you want to put a flag in the ground, go out of home.
Yeah.
All right, Tori. Chase Sapphire is a credit card brand that really leans into experiences as its key value proposition. So how do out-of-home experiences and activations help drive that message home with customers and your potential customers?
Yeah, so experiences are not a nice to have when it comes to premium travel and dining cards. We're seeing that actually it is table stakes. And so our research shows that up to 90% across the board of our card members say that access to exclusive experiences reinforces their decision to carry our card. It justifies the annual spend, and it pushes them to see our brand as more premium, even if they don't attend. And that's like the big key. So we're seeing that it is just so critical to the business as well as our brand and our marketing. We also see that customers who attend our experiences in real life spend more, especially on travel and dining, and they're more likely to be longer tenured customers of the card. So for us, it's really about delivering that benefit and about telling the story of our brand. And I think the panel before made a lot of great points about, experiences are out of home. So I'll give you an example. We just did a great activation around tennis. I can't say which big tennis event in New York because we're not a sponsor, but we activated at the Seaport and we built a stadium at the Seaport for Sapphire. We had tennis lessons with Jessica Pegula. For our card members, we had a really great sort of activation there. But it was huge. And so it was an incredible experience for our card members, but it was also for anybody walking by the Seaport, a beautiful sort of out-of-home moment for the brand.
Awesome. I love hearing that they spend more when you're experiencing the brand. Alex, the ethos of Iris is all about showing up and participating in people's lives. I love this. It's obviously bold, and it's also a little bit bullish. How do you think about participating in people's lives in a way that feels organic and not invasive?
It's such a good question because right now brands just cannot afford not to be in people's lives. Oh yeah, we did this. And this is a little bit of an example of the stuff that we're doing because, and that's what I love about out-of-home advertising, because Aaron was saying this, that's where stories become real. And it's such a nice insight from your work with United Airlines, which is a true insight. It comes from reality. People experience and people tend to enjoy and really relate to things that they look at it and they see themselves and they see things that are new and they see things that are innovative. And that's a little bit about that. That's what participation really means. Participation doesn't mean, hey, you got a participation medal, great, you participate. No, it's not about that. It's like, hey, you cannot afford not to participate in a conversation. Otherwise, you're gonna be out of the conversation. That's a little bit of what we've been doing. We got a couple of examples, like bot boards was a little activation that we did for World ID, which is Sam Altman's company that has literally, it's the first ever proof of human, which is, this is where we are now. We need to prove that we're human. But yes, that's where we are. And in the world of, bots are everywhere. And what we did was to show that not all of them are easy to spot as these ones. And this is a little bit of like looking at out-of-home. And out-of-home is so interesting because it keeps reinventing itself over and over and over again. It's such an old, quote unquote, media in that sense, but like it keeps reinventing itself and keeps being relevant. Like, who's to say that like bot boards cannot be a permanent offering? Now, now you not only have out-of-home ads, you not only have billboards, but the billboards can literally go after your target audience. So there's something really interesting about that. And speaking about participating in culture, is so important. Like a few years ago, and in my previous life, I was working with Budweiser globally in the UK, and it was amazing because Budweiser was the sponsor of the Brit Awards, and the Brit Awards is like the Grammys in England. And the Brit Awards for the first year was amazing. They were like, we're not going to do male and female artists. We're only going to do best artists, but they only nominated men. And then what we did was like, well, we have a few days to do something about this, so we cannot come up with a campaign. So we turned the billboard into a stage, and we offered only to women artists. And then at the area of the event, we broadcast, because we had media inside the arena where the event was happening, we filmed everything, and we broadcast inside the arena while the Brit Awards were happening, so like the attendees could also see all the women that they had snubbed, and they were up on the stage, and one of them actually got there with a contract, and she went to Abbey Road to record an album and something like that. So it's crazy, but that's the kind of stuff that like brands need to think about, participating in people's lives, tapping into culture, and that's what this is all about.
Love that. Bullish, see, where we started. But Ian, I think you should try to get these walking boards, these bop boards.
Let's talk.
All right, well, let's stay on seeing all these creative examples, because I know we all enjoy them. Tim, can you talk about a specific campaign where out-of-home drove real-world impact that ultimately was amplified across other channels?
Yes. So more United Airlines work.
Yes, I can talk more about that.
That was the question. So yeah, this is kind of like a two-step thing. I'll click through these fast, but basically we started last year with like a new brand campaign that was all about showing what the world's biggest airline could do for you as like an individual passenger. So all of the work, like the TV told very nice stories. The out-of-home was very much kind of like really hard RTBs that were very relevant to wherever the out-of-home showed up. So we did some really kind of like big showy stuff that did very universal RTBs, like network stuff. We fly everywhere. Flight time stuff. We fly all the time essentially. We did some very city specific stuff. New York's going everywhere. Chicago, we had the most non-stops. All that kind of stuff. We did some very kind of local knowledge stuff, like this in LA. This at the Lincoln Tunnel, where there is a lot of stopping, obviously. And then this in Denver, where obviously you see mountains all the time, just really getting into like local kind of mindset and stuff. And then the biggest part of it, we had like 400 units throughout our hub airports. So we have a subcategory. This is like in-airport out-of-home. And so these, again, they were very specific to cities. They were very specific to types of flyers. They were very much about like where you are in your travel journey and what you needed to know at that point to make travel easier. Showing off what the app can do for you in your travel journey, all that kind of stuff. Just really getting to know the mindset of the traveler and show that we understand them. And then with that, we found that part of what we could do with this was do a little bit of like fun, kind of good-natured competitive trolling of other brands. So this was in Denver. This is called Skyline Park. And Southwest, apologies if there's anyone from Southwest here, but they sponsor a beer garden here every summer, and we just bought this, the advertising above it, just saying that we have the most flights out of Denver. Sure, it's true. They got really mad, and we heard from Cara, our media agency, that they wanted to buy this back from us. And we were like, no way, we're having it for the whole summer, and in fact, we're going to buy it this year as well. And get a little sharper on, a little bit of trolling on Southwest. So this says we have more flights Southwest than, So that got us into like, a little bit of competitive stuff, and it kind of led us into this next campaign, which was all about being competitive. This was it's called the Switchers campaign. It's all about trying to get people to switch from whatever their airline is to United and status match their loyalty program to Mileage Plus, essentially, and we would do that for free. And this was really hardworking digital and social assets, like, kind of low cost, but like very, very hardworking. Same kind of message as the brand campaign, just saying what we can do better for you. And we just bought one out of home at O'Hare in Chicago. And it was like, kind of a subtle dig, but we just said Chicago's #1 airline is here. This is as soon as you drive into O'Hare, and the rest of them are like this way. And it caused such a kind of uproar. It got picked up by tons of like, press, like Forbes wrote about it. My mother-in-law sent me a Wall Street Journal article saying, like, did you do this? They talked about the airline wars, all that kind of stuff. It was one out of home, but it spread like this idea massively. And then, the results from this, I think in New York, it was like 100% increase in status matches. That's great. In Chicago, I think it was closer to like 200% increase. In Denver, it was like an almost 400% increase. And of Southwest loyalty members moving to United, it was like almost 900% increase. That's crazy.
That is insane. We're not going to even get to the question I had on measurement, so thank you for just touching on that. Jim, are there any new trends and categories being driven to out-of-home that might not have played in the space before? And do you think the experiential nature of the medium is what's driving them there today?
Well, I mean, there's certainly, pharma has been talked about. It was talked about earlier as an emerging category, given the current discussion happening with the current administration. So, and also emerging tech. How many people are familiar with Friend, the Friend necklace? Driven largely by out-of-home advertising, So emerging AI technology, certainly an area. But one thing I'd say is not only emerging industries, but also emerging ways to think about experiential. I'll say the name of the tennis tournament because we were a partner at the US Open. How many people attended US Open? How many people had a honey deuce? Sponsored by Grey Goose. That is experiential. FIFA was talked about earlier. It will be the largest sporting event in the history of the world. And so how can brands take advantage of that? And it's not only, and I do believe that will kick off globally experiential as a much, much larger practice for brands, even way beyond where they are today when they see the impact that I believe personally that something like the FIFA World Stage will bring about. We at Outfront do a ton of stuff around sporting events, whether it be FIFA or the Derby or Super Bowl, given the assets. But the thing that's most important is that this is still all rooted in the heritage of really strong real estate assets, whether it be a billboard or transit, and leveraging for the scale and then creating memorable moments that are extended through social. We did a campaign with Coca-Cola not too long ago, which was, QR code activated, share a Coke with your name on it. And so the ability for consumer interactivity. And so again, another emerging way for experiential, once again, leveraged in the heritage of out-of-home placements. So, so in addition to categories, I definitely see more emergence of new ways in which to use out-of-home to create memorable experiences, contextually aware.
It's a great point about the honeydew drink. I never think about that as a consumer. That's an out-of-home experience.
It's an out-of-home experience.
If you think about it, it's like you said, it's an opportunity. There's the World Cup. There's U.S. Open. I don't care if I say the name. But it's also like, how can brands and how can clients jump in and be unique at those moments, right? Because it's not, when you go to the US Open, you had honey deuces, but you also have like a gazillion brands trying to bring their attention. The smartest thing is sometimes to get away from it and go to the South Street Seaport. Sometimes it's like, and it's super important about thinking, what's your story? Right? Like in the end of the day, and I always like to quote Joan Didion that she says that we tell ourselves stories in order to live. It's a human truth. So what's the story of your brand? Like what's the story that you're bringing? The moment that everyone is going to the World Cup and trying to hit it within a partnership or without a partnership, but how do we tell the right story that people resonate to and click and your mother-in-law calls you?
Just before we end, one last plug.
Saw the
for those
end
of you from out of town, if you have not been to Grand Central Station, go see Dear New York.
Yes.
That is an amazing,
Incredible.
It's an amazing use of out-of-home assets to create experiences and emotion. It's incredible. So if you've seen it, tell your friends. If you haven't seen it, make sure you get to Grand Central. It ends on Saturday.
on Sunday, I think, October 19th. Well, it's my birthday.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being a part of this experience with us. Unfortunately, we have to end. I had a stack of questions, but we really appreciate you and all of your sharing today.
Hi, everybody. How was the break? Awesome. Okay, well, very exciting panel we have here today. Pharma has come up already in the conversation, and it is a very hot topic and fast-growing category in out-of-home. So we have some experts on the subject matter to impart their wisdom on us today, and I will let them introduce themselves.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? My name is Amy Fishman. I'm a principal at IQVIA. We're a healthcare data and analytics company, and I work with global media agencies.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Giddings. I am currently the Enterprise Group Director at Initiative Wellness, where my client is Gilead Sciences. Before that, I was at Universal McCann, and my client was Johnson & Johnson, which we're going to speak about today. But I just want to say I'm so excited to be here. I love outdoor. I think it came from where I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth on Apple. And I'm in the city, and I see the boards that I picked out 20 years ago for the permanents. And I'm wondering if I did market rides with some of you guys here, because I have a special love in my heart for that. So anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. I'm Ed Marr at Clear Channel Health Solutions, a new division of Clear Channel.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to start with what's driving pharma marketers to reevaluate out of home. It hasn't been, I would say, the most popular medium for pharma folks, but certainly on the rise. So what are you guys seeing, and what do you attribute the change to?
I can speak to that. So a few years ago, we were looking for how we could break through to the consumer. So on Johnson & Johnson, we were not the number one market leaders. We weren't the number one spenders, although we had desire to do so. The immunology category, which is the brands that I was in, they spent over $1 billion a year in advertising, and that's in TV, streaming, digital. We could not break through that share of voice. So what we were doing is we looked for those competitive blank spaces. Where can we make an impact where we're not going to be going head-to-head with the monsters in the category? We saw outdoor. The way we pitched it to the client was what's old is new again. But instead of just doing the boards, what we did was we selected the boards based on our HVA. So we used third-party data to select the boards. So that was step one. Step two, and this is what we think is the magic sauce, was we retargeted those who were exposed to the outdoor through mobile targeting. The results were incredible. Our leading indicators, awareness, we knew. We knew we were going to get it, so we were pretty confident about it. What we didn't realize and what we were surprised by was the increase in consideration intent. So in pharma, you'll see a lot of ads, go talk to your doctor. When we did the brand lift studies, typically when we do them, we usually get results of like 3 to 5% lift in consideration lift, through social brand lift studies. But with outdoor, what we were surprised by is what we were getting 8-point lift, 20-point lift. It blew our minds. We didn't expect that at all.
Over and over again. Right?
And yes, and it just kept happening again and again. And what we were even more surprised by was we did a localized campaign towards Hispanic audiences. This was an untapped market. Nobody was speaking to the Hispanic audiences about the diseases that we were looking to treat for. So when we did the localized Hispanic campaign, what we saw was we were getting double-digit increases in consideration intent to go talk to your doctors. And we think that a lot of this had to do with normalizing the disease that we were looking to treat. We worked with Univision because we wanted to make sure we got the right Hispanic insights. We saw that, we were looking to treat Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis, which is, it's poop. It's just, nobody wants to talk about it. And in the Hispanic category, it was even more taboo. So, we saw this as a way to normalize it. It drove the consideration intent double over the general market. And, and as an additional thing that we were all very happy about is, you don't have to suffer in silence. We were able to talk about this. and help this audience who weren't getting treated because they didn't know about it or they're too embarrassed to talk about it. So it was, the clients were very pleased. We ended up expanding it, continuing with the brand, and opening up to other brands.
Yeah, and I don't want to steal your thunder, Ed, but you've been at this for a while. So what have you sort of seen change over the last couple of years where people are really excited to see you walk through the door?
I love Chrissy's enthusiasm. The best client is a curious client, right? That's Chrissy. Thank you, Chrissy, on behalf of the agents of the industry. It was really getting a seat at the table, solving for a few things, having been more data driven than we've been before. And once we got there, it was amazing how all the solutions, all the needs that were there were being solved, many of them with out of home. It was, I think we were looking at different channels and where there was a weakness, we were a complement, right? If you looked at linear and the erosion, 2008, 76% of TV consumption is down, right? So how can we help there? We fill that void that they're really the solve there has been the agency then chasing down that audience in the CTV world. eMarketer, thank you eMarketer, about a month ago shared that of the top 7 OTT CTV vendors that 55% of their audiences are accessible, 45% are not. And so you have this linear erosion chased into CTV, almost half are not accessible. When you're using outdoor, when you're using these audience segments, these HVAs, Chrissy's team calls them, we are able to both reach the consumer that they're reaching through TV, but we're also able to bring in this incremental reach, this group that's not. As long as these groups are in our footprint, we're going to get to them. So that was the big thing, because they were the laggard in making change. Pharma was in the space transitioning off of TV into other solutions. So we were able to get there with that solution. You guys know that the other channel, digital, we're high impact. That was the big benefit there. And then you get to what Erin was speaking about with search, and think about how we're going to solve that, right? You can't, there's $160 billion of spend, as I understand it, on search. And I'm using ChatGPT to figure my things out. It's, that's not the answer anymore. How do you get top of mind? You get top of mind with outdoors. So we were solving a lot of things.
Yeah, and Amy, what have you seen change?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to piggyback off of what you both were sharing. I mean, in the previous panel, there was a hint at, different legislation coming down the pike as it impacts pharma and digital. We're definitely seeing that. So this is an area that we can target in a privacy-safe, de-identified way, which is super interesting. But then ultimately, we're measuring it. And IQVIA has been ubiquitous with pharma measurement for many years now, but the fact that we're able to do test control and see actual lift from these out-of-home campaigns, it's truly remarkable, and an area to dive into, explore, and normalize conditions, of course. If you see someone with in an out-of-home ad with atopic derm or plaque psoriasis or something that maybe isn't so sexy, but it becomes part of like the zeitgeist and common conversation, that really does help patients to feel empowered to see their doctor and all of that.
So how are you seeing marketers balance like scale, privacy, and precision to ensure that their messages reach both patients and providers effectively? And I think that's something we talked a lot about in the prep, is that there can be two audiences here, and a lot of folks in the room work on clients or work with clients that have both a B2B and a B2C component. So how do you sort of straddle both of those things too?
Well, I can jump in with out of home. You're able to target both. Like, we're not just doing separate buckets of direct-to-consumer or HCP, healthcare professional targeting. If it's out in the open, you're reaching both of those budgets in a unified manner, which is really exciting and also really efficient.
Yeah, in our planning, that's what we were looking to do. So in pharma, you've got two different budgets. You've got your budgets for DTC, and then you've got your budgets for HCP. Typically, they're two different plans. But the DTC side, which is what I cover, we were using, we were identifying the boards, our placements, again, based on third-party segment audience, so where were they most likely to be? But we also looked at being near HCP offices, so you were going to get that 2-for-1, which was really attractive to the brand marketers when we were selling the IDN.
And there's something they call the blue jean moment in the HCP world, and because outdoor is one-to-many, and we're using these audiences, I think, uniquely in a one-to-many fashion, right? You're generally using the audiences in one-to-one. In our case, we find the highest indexing, and a portion of that of our audience is going to be that target. But then there's this what we used to call spill. It's no longer spill. We confidently see it as incremental reach and more like-minded. And in that set are these doctors, right? Are also these caregivers, right? So there's all these synergies that we start to that outdoor can suddenly deliver that really hasn't been an option with other media.
Yep, and so as you guys are talking through some of the work that you've done with some of your partners and clients, it's no longer just an awareness medium, as you were saying, from a pharma perspective. There's a lot of full funnel attributes that you've seen in some of your case studies, so I'd love for you to talk and highlight some of those. Chrissy, I'm looking at you.
I'm ready. Yeah, so that was one of the things that we were challenged with when we were selling this into the clients, is that they saw this as upper funnel. Like, why should we do this? We already do TV, we already do CTV. But we were looking at this in a different way. Again, that competitive blank space, we were being outspent by these competitors, 3-to-1, 5-to-1. We weren't going to match them. We could get as close as we could to them, with shorter length TV units, so basically buying more units. But in order to get more head on with them, we looked at the outdoor boards and just what sold it into them for getting this more full funnel approach was that retargeting I was talking about, using data to help us inform the boards, using retargeting to help remind them, and then also follow up with the additional information. So one of the things, and I'm not we'll probably get to this, so I'm going to cover it now. The boards in pharma, with any message you have in pharma, if you've got the brand name and then the indication, so whether it be Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, plaque psoriasis, it triggers the regulatory the fine print, basically. And you cannot fit that on an outdoor board. We can do that in digital, we can do that in TV. I mean, you've all seen it, you hear it, even in radio. But what this approach allowed us to do is we'd have the brand name out there. So we'd have the brand name, but not the indication. When we followed up that with the mobile retargeting, that's when we can say the brand name and the indication, and then all the fine print. So that helped us sell in the idea that this can be a full funnel approach for pharma.
Yeah, and it can also be measured in the same omni-channel way that all of your other tactics, whether it's linear, CTV, et cetera, social, et cetera, which is, at one point at home was a blind spot, but now that it can be measured in the same way, it really can be a part of the omni-channel journey in a seamless way.
And we've built our solutions to be adaptable and to be able to integrate with whoever the client data partner is, right? Client or agency. IQVIA is one of the largest suppliers of data out there, so it's typically and often an IQVIA, but there are others in the space, and that's how we've built it so that these clients can see exactly what she's speaking to, which is how we show up relative to other channels, or really in complement to other channels.
Yeah, I think the disclosure obviously comes up a lot, but generally speaking, how have you seen the creative change and become more human and relatable as brands start to scale up their out-of-home from a pharma perspective? Ed, you could take it.
Yeah, more relatable. I mean, I think relatable is, I just think about it, we need to communicate, our marketers need to communicate with the consumer, and it's brutal in this, low attention span world. We heard 7 seconds attention span is the average attention span. We heard it years ago, right? What is it today? I haven't heard it, but I'll tell you, the younger you get, my kids are 3 seconds, right? And so I think we're marrying really well to that. And if all the media plan is a story, I think we are the title, right? And we're that statement that the creative folks spoke to. But from Yeah, that's how I think it's just about simplifying the message. What you guys had seen before, often in outdoor, is the outdoor with the ISI, all the disclaimer. Chrissy just explained how we got around that. We brought that to market 6 years ago, I think. And that's how we got around it, to simplify the message, to communicate the message in that few seconds that the consumer has or is willing to give you. And maybe in the final ponder moment of their multitasking life, right? Where they get a thought and they could think about, oh, I have this issue. That's the solution potentially. Let me speak to my doctor. That is our goal. That's our client's goal. Can we trigger that conversation? And I think we're delivering just enough to get that triggered, and it's showing up in the script lift over and over again, which we're now doing.
Yeah, and I could just add, just creative at large in pharma marketing. It's really been an iterative process from super scientific and in the weeds to really humanizing, and even having celebrities, like I'm thinking of Lady Gaga. She was in Pfizer's Nurtec ad, for example. So you have that like celebrity element, that relatability, to make chronic migraine something that's a little bit more commonplace.
What are the biggest internal hurdles to adopting out of home within pharma marketing organizations, and how are you overcoming them in all the conversations that you're having, if you're having them?
Yes, we are. But is that better? There are a lot of hurdles. It's really a giant machine that is this pharma marketing world with a lot of touch points, and accessing it little by little. For me, there are different answers to this, but maybe the biggest answer and the biggest tool that we now have is script lift, right? When you can get, yes, brand metrics and all those things are helpful. You understand where it's going. Those are early indicators, but ultimately it's about that holy grail, which is conversions, and in this case, it's script lift, right? Once you can get there, then you're understanding really the value that you've added. You can tie that then to revenue. And then once you could tie it to revenue, you start to see, you get clarity on return on investment. That's how every business decision is generally made. Return on investment. How much did I put in? What did I get out? And now we can see that. So I think with that tool, I'm able to access more conversation, and we're all starting to move in this direction, I think, right, to gain these tools.
Yeah, and I think selling it into a client who's never done this before, I love that what's old is new approach. They got it when we showed them how this medium could be a lot more data-driven, more measured. And then I think talking about the ISI is always a conversation. I can't get all my messages, regulatory will never approve that. But then showing how you can get around that with the retargeting helped a lot.
I'll just echo what you both said. The fact that you can measure it and have that case study in pharma, it's like adopting something old that's now new. It takes, med legal and all of these sorts of different steps in order to make it come to life. But once you have that case study, once you have that success metric, and you have metrics like new patient starts, audience quality, and ultimately script lift, that's what's going to move the needle and help, more brands adopt out of home.
Yeah, I actually just realized another thing that helps us sell it in. Again, it's a competitive blank space for pharma, at least in immunology. There was nobody else doing it. So that was a very attractive proposition to the brand marketers, is in a way that they could outshout their competitors in a different way.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Great panel, great topic. Really appreciate you all. Next panel, wherever the clicker is. Oh, give a round of applause. And now I'm going to bring Ashwini from the 4As back up here for the next panel.
Wonderful, thank you. The 4As just finished a pretty, our inaugural healthcare marketing summit, if you will. I think next year we'll talk more about it at the 4As OAAA event. All right, so the next session is about measurement in out of home. If Ron Pinellas is still here, and the three of you, this is like a never-ending topic. right? Uh, Only because I think we are still trying to figure out exactly how to measure, what to measure. Couple of years ago, we had talked about, actually, before I go into this session, I would love for you to introduce yourselves and, I know at least two of you wear multiple hats, so what all you do at your companies.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Omnicom. I'm Jill. Hello. There we go. I can...
Is this a user error or is this, because they are flashing red.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, they are red. Okay, good.
Hello. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Omnicom. My name is Jill Schnitt. I am the president of Outdoor Media Group, Omnicom's out-of-home special business unit.
Hi, everyone. Jeremy Flynn, Executive Vice President and Head of Product at Horizon Media.
Hi, I'm Paul Kulchin. I'm working with Geopath and OAAA on next generation measurement strategy and the build out of the solution.
Perfect. So, all questions are for all of you, whoever chooses to answer them. My first question, I think this question has been a pet topic of discussion for a while, about when can out-of-home move into impressions as a measurement and then to outcomes. I think all the panels that came before us, what Erin mentioned, what everyone else mentioned, I love those examples of United Airlines and the robot, walking dog thing. It's incredible. So it's like, well, that is an outcome right there, but why can't we measure it? So my specific question is, out-of-home as a medium still seems to be trying to figure out how to just count impressions. And so what would be some best practices to, move beyond the opportunity to see, likelihood to see? They're very important, but eventually for out-of-home to become part of the broader media mix, we have to go into some sort of impression counting. What would be some best practices that you've seen working or that, that you would recommend?
I'm happy to jump in. I think you got to look at the foundation of trust, right, in the media sell process is audience measurement. It determines the media value. It holds the accountability. Performance is a follow-on to that. And if it's done right, audience measurement should be interoperable with performance measurement. So one thing in out-of-home is a little unique is audience measurement's done on one side, performance is on the other. The ad exposures don't pass between them, so it causes a greater challenge, greater investment needed, those type of things. So as we look at the initiative, this next gen initiative, it starts with the root data and going, you need more deterministic data, looking at truly bringing in large scale, creating a data lake of ad exposure in a privacy protected way that is about person level mobile movement data as the foundation to the measurement, and then you use the other sources to calibrate, fill in, and do it. Very similar to the transition from linear TV to CTV and what was required there to advance the measurement.
Hello. So I am not a measurement expert for those who know my background in this industry. I've really focused on the digital out-of-home side and have sold media. Now I'm back to the agency side. But I would say over the past year, I've become a big student of the measurement space because it's very critical for us to understand everything from currency to attribution. And we're in a really unique position as the out-of-home industry because while we are selling impressions in some cases like programmatic and digital media, we also are in a really unique place where we're buying and selling real estate, a nuance that is not in any other media. So I think as we think about measurement, we also have to think about how we are unique to that story. It's about locations, it's about the art and the science, which I've really leaned into. And as Paul said, it's evolving, it's changing, and there's a lot more for us to learn and do. It's not about perfection right now, it's about progress, in my opinion, too.
Hi. Got a lot of thoughts on this topic. I would say that what's unique to out-of-home too is it's the only channel that doesn't own its own audience, right? So every other media could produce more content, drive more traffic, and so you inherently need to rely on third-party sources to build out what it means to say is audience reach if you're a media owner. And I think that the best way to do that is to actually open that up to competition and innovation, and allow for standards to be set, and then allow for folks to participate in those standards, because they'll start to encounter the headwinds of privacy complexity for what data could actually be used. But I think that there's a unique opportunity to set what audited inventory actually means, and then what actual impressions actually mean, and then how that actually gets transacted, and then kind of let healthy competition drive innovation.
So you brought up the privacy word. Let's go there, because Erin mentioned this previously. I think for the last couple of years, more and more people have been saying this. The paradox is that probably out of home is one of the more privacy safe or privacy following medium. Yet for some reason, so I don't come from the out of home space. I have learned it over the years. The medium doesn't make that case. It doesn't lead with, of everything that's happening right now, I am the most privacy safe, as if I'm the medium. I'm the most privacy safe medium, so why aren't you engaging more?
Yeah, it's fraud free, it's unskippable.
Yes.
The only viewability issue is that a tree grows in front of it. These are all positioning opportunities. But yeah, inherently, I think on a yearly basis, there's $7 or $8 billion of ad fraud in other media channels, and that's the entire U.S. addressable market for out of home. And so you could literally double the size of it by competing on that topic.
So my question, and you started answering it, is what would your pitch be? For as we all go out and start making this case, what would be some best practice, some words, some pitches, some best practices that we should be making more of?
It's unskippable. The viewability issue is that trees only grow in front of it. But honestly, there are technologies for ad verification that do a lot in terms of how they position their solutions to brands to make sure that brands are effective at reaching their customers. I think the sign of a good marketer is the ability to mimic and steal from what is working, and those are big billion-dollar businesses. And so I think looking to how they're positioning themselves and taking some heed.
I would say though, out of home is naturally private, but the measurement needed requires you to go into and find data and do it in a privacy protected way. So you're balancing both, especially when you look to try, and the big opportunity growth is, can we get out of home truly in an omni-channel media planning world with TV and digital? It does create, while it's privacy, it's presenting value to measurement. I do have to be really looking at really smart, creative ways to deal with the measurement side that is heavily influenced by privacy restrictions because of the nature of the data needed to do the ad exposures.
Yeah, and from where we sit, we're at a holding company with multiple other channels, right? And some of the channels that we're talking about are actually part of the media mix, which our clients have been investing in for years. So we need to be really careful how we have those conversations. So our team chooses to take the approach that out of home is the ultimate team player to the other channels and can help reach audiences that you are not across those other channels. And we saw some data in Erin's presentation, and there's, as we know, a multitude of studies that have been done by the OAAA as well as other organizations within our industry that have helped us to craft that story and just reposition it a little and talk about how we can amplify and support versus how other channels are maybe not doing their job.
True. I just want to repeat what Jeremy said. There is no fraud. It is not skippable. So I've started and run digital companies. At this point, currently, 50% of anything you see online is probably fraudulent. And if AI goes the way it does, higher percentages are like utter garbage. So you're constantly ring fencing. Whereas in out of home, all those ads and examples you saw, they were all real. Like there was no, the message could be not, could be garbage, but it's a real thing. It really happened. And so I would encourage, anyone bringing out of home to a media plan to really stress on that, because I think those are going to be really appealing messages moving forward.
I think data has the power to unlock that. So like at the fundamental level, it's less about media channel, because I don't think people remember, did I get hit with a mobile ad or the TV ad or the billboard? They got hit with advertising. And so like at its root, it's about audiences and it's about outcomes. And it's about how you participate in that audience and outcome narrative. So like out-of-home delivers incremental audiences or highly performant audiences. But it's how you then plug into outcomes-based measurement. And then that segues into like, are you providing like attribution, like in a multi-touch sense, or are you providing like strong outcomes in a media mix sense? And so how you participate like really does matter.
Yeah, it's almost like Jeremy knows what I'm going to talk next. What I did want to move to is, out of home as a performance brand. There are so many opportunities now to close the loop through QR code scanning or whatever, dial a number and complete the sale. Or our next panel is going to talk about in-store, digital to in-store and closing that loop. What have been some examples that each one of you have seen where out-of-home has really come to play as a performance channel, delivering measurable results?
I mean, I'm really proud of the work that the out-of-home team at Horizon has done with gaming brands and delivering and measuring outcomes for like app conversion and driving like installs. Like that is, like out-of-home is a performant medium. It just hasn't been measured, or it hasn't been easy to measure. And just because something's not easy to measure doesn't mean that it doesn't perform. And so I think that we're doing a really good job with measurement over at Horizon when it comes to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for us here, there are a multitude of studies that we've done, everything from buying direct out of home to programmatic out of home, top of the funnel, all the way through the bottom of the funnel. But I think what was most interesting for me was to hear on each panel from either a client or an agency leader who is not an out of home specialist. They talked about how measurement helped them, have proof points to go back into the marketplace, and not just awareness proof points, but conversion proof points. So I think those stories, the more we can share them in these forums and forums that go beyond the out-of-home industry, the more success we'll have. And it's taking that data, as Paul was saying, and feeding that back in so that we can have proof points and feed that into channel mixes.
I think one of the things, when we looked at next generation measurement, the OAAA and Geopath, one of the end outcomes was, how do you get out-of-home better into mixed models? And how do you make it easier? And how do you get the data in a way that the mixed modelers can really account for it? Because in a lot of cases, out-of-home isn't getting accounted for. It may be present, but it's not really being modeled in. I've talked to, as part of that initiative, probably 10 modelers out there across the globe, and all of them had consistent things that they're saying, hey, we need more frequency impression, more granular impressions, those things. But we also need the ability to look at incrementality studies, lift studies that we can feed in to tune the models, those type of things. And when they had the data in, it was interesting. I was talking to a big mix modeler, and they said, look, it was clear. It was a big CPG brand, both in Europe and here. They're like, out-of-home performed really well on next dollar spent or the marginal ROI. Like it was a clear case that if you had $1 to spend next, out-of-home by far was outpacing everything else you could spend it on.
I'll comment on that. I think it's also about speed and standardization of how you deliver like the speed of exposure and the speed of the outcome to actually plug into the media mix modeling, right? So I think most of us in this room probably produce attribution studies they oftentimes come at the end of the campaign after the media planning process has already determined where that next dollar gets spent. So that earlier on in that process, you can deliver data to like help inform that, like that matters. And I think it's kind of twofold. Like when it comes to modeling, like there's multi-touch attribution modeling where you can actually provide like media lift studies like while they are live and inform a multi-touch model. And then there's media mix that's kind of more long-term where you want to talk about like outcomes over a long time horizon. And like out-of-home can participate in both, right? Solutions exist. And that the other thing to remember is it's about progress over perfection, right? But like you still have to deliver it in a standard way. But speed definitely matters.
And you got to build that speed into the measurement system. It's how you get, it's not enough to get the data in real time, it's how you get the data in the hands of all the technology needed and all the entities needed to actually act on it.
Since we are talking about, what could come next, many of the media types are starting to play around with synthetic audiences, like the extrapolating based on existing audience. And I'm old enough where we used to call it lookalike modeling. Now it's called synthetic. I haven't heard a lot of synthetic audiences, that discussion within out of home.
We're doing it.
So
yeah.
I would love for you to share more if you can.
Our out-of-home team is awesome at kind of driving innovation. They have a product called AMP, and they're working on building out predictive audiences based on prior behaviors. So a lot of the campaigns that we've run on behalf of our brands, like we're taking a look at their performance data to use that to actually build the next set of audiences of those who are likely to convert, right? And so like it is like a lookalike model, and it's about propensity, but it relies on different ways like machine learning and AI to like actually predict like the audiences that are most likely to convert and thus like what inventory should be on the media plan.
So my last question, next year when we're all here talking about measurement again, what would you have liked to see in these 12 months? So next year you talk about whatever, I'm sure there'll be some AI stuff we talk about. What would you like to have already seen? What are you predicting is going to happen over the next 12 months? So that next year, this time...
A loaded question, Mr. Reach Frequency guy.
So what I'd like to see is the advancement, and I think the initiative that's being done is right where it needs to be, because it only works when buy-sell are working together for lots of reasons. One, you got to agree on standards, you got to agree on all those things, you got to get investments, all those things. What I'd like to see is truly, we are, it's a work in process, discovery process. What as a group we're thinking is needed, and then you start going, okay, how do we bring all the providers needed, all the data together, and start building the concept to ultimately bring in and be able to see real data as an output. That is what I want to see. I want to see technology. I think machine learning, AI has a chance to create done elsewhere where I've seen it. It's in all the other. It's self-learning, meaning one of the things right now out-of-home measurements kind of measured. The best audience measurement systems now take that in, use AI, machine learning to do all the processing stuff, but it also learns from itself and improves itself.
Well, I came from the buy side, and I came from the sell side, and I've been on the buy side for about 5 months. It feels like 10 years. And I would say that like my expectation is how to plug data in to inform better media mix modeling. I actually fully believe that out-of-home should command more of the media budget, and its lack of participation in that is kind of capping investment levels. And the only way to solve that is to, I think, go over and build it. So that's what I'm going to try to do.
I'm really excited about the technology that these two talked about, but I'm also really excited about us evolving and educating our agency partners, our clients, and the people on my team about attribution, measurement, how we can push the envelope so that they're comfortable speaking about it. I think oftentimes people hear measurement and they, stay away from it because they're not comfortable, discussing any sort of outcomes or solutions. So I'd really like in a year from now to see, more of my team and people across the industry having a better conversation, a more comfortable conversation around currency and attribution.
Those are fantastic, very realistic aspirational goals. So hopefully next year we'll be like, ooh, look what all we completed. Now let's talk about the next step. So on that note, thank you so much for sharing, for talking. Our next panel actually brings all of this home to some extent because we're going to be talking about bridging in-store and out-of-store and truly measuring as much as we can. So Haley, I would love for you to take the stage and bring your panel on.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Haley Cotta, Director of Industry Initiatives at OAAA. Today is all about bringing together marketers. We have agencies in the room, media owners, and we're exploring out-of-home's growth opportunity in the omni-channel mix. And that mix is certainly growing with the rise of retail media networks, which are reshaping how brands are speaking to their customers. And they're seeking more meaningful and measurable ways to guide that consumer journey. And out-of-home is really a touch point in that consumer journey and that shopper experience with online and offline. So we have an amazing panel here today, and we're excited to hear their thoughts on how to connect in-store and out-of-store touchpoints, leveraging shopper data, and just build a more full-funnel connected commerce strategy that, of course, includes out-of-home in the mix. So before we start, I'd love for our panelists to introduce themselves.
Thanks. I'm Gabby Schneider. I lead go-to-market for Connected Media, which is United Airlines Commerce Media Network.
And I'm Renee Caceres. I'm leading retail media and commerce media at StackAdapt, and it's really weird to be back here because many years ago, I will not say up on a stage how many years ago, but I worked in this building for OMD on Pepsi, so this is like full circle. This is crazy.
Love that. My name is Lucy Markowitz. I'm the GM for Vistar in the US market, and what's kind of fun about this panel is that we actually work with both StackAdapt and Connected Media, so it's great to be here with friends and partners. Though we did just meet in person for the first time, like literally right there.
Connecting all around, right? So just starting more broadly, what's driving the shift from siloed shopper marketing to more integrated commerce strategies?
I can take that one. So if you think about shopper marketing, it's about driving X revenue at X retailer. The how is changing, and that's because of emerging technology. It's giving brands more access to robust data, better measurement, as well as the introduction of new commerce media players, like United. So when we think about that, that means brands can shift how they're doing shopper marketing from the way that they were doing it before. And that's enabling the ability to do all these like integrated commerce strategies in order to help them reach that goal of driving X revenue at X retailer.
And I would say too, from my previous life in between, we're hearing a lot right now of like shoppers eating trade and brands want to unlock, and there's all these different buckets of money. And personally, I think it's like one bucket, right? If mom has $5 and she gives everybody $1, you're going to go do something different with it, but they're still just $5. And I think what's most important is like when those holes of the bucket all work together, that's when the change happens, and that's when you can be really unique and special and cut through the clutter. And I think that's what's so awesome about out-of-home is that you can be big and bold, right? Draw that stake in the ground, but it's very local. It can be very personal, and that's what retail media does as well.
Yeah, for sure. Lucy, gonna go ahead, pass it to you. So Vistar Media sits at the intersection of data, technology, and retail. So how are you helping brands use programmatic and audience data to extend their retail media investments, or campaign strategy rather, into the physical world?
Yeah, so I think with Vistar, obviously at our core, we are a programmatic out-of-home company that has looked to not just automate, but actually help brands run better campaigns that are outcome-driven. I think with that being said, and kind of taking almost like an aside to that and thinking about how we're working more and more with, I would say, retailers, not even just retail media companies or commerce companies, is with sort of like, if you think about where you start what screens do you have on premise? And Vistar, given that we are also a software company that looks to create better content management systems and better ways for people to operate the screens that they have that are going to be directly engaging with consumers, like that's the first piece. So first is like, how do we nail helping some of these different retailers that want to get into the space to actually run their systems? Obviously, Vistar was recently acquired by T-Mobile, and as a part of that, we're trying to bring together some of the additional aspects of what T-Mobile has been bringing into the space, specifically around their RMN strategy. So part of that is covering like the expenditure of screens for some of these different retailers that are looking to put up their network. And then I think there's the education piece, which is like, what are you willing to do with your data? What are you willing to provide? And kind of giving that encouragement. I think when we think about all the different touch points that we can have, part of it is with more screens being in valuable places, so not just more screens for the sake of screens, it gives an opportunity for more brands to come into that space through programmatic pipes. It also gives an opportunity for extension plays. So you think about, any retailer or commerce company that has screens that are part of their owned and operated, there's also an opportunity to reach people on that journey outside of that. And then, of course, there's the data play, which is bringing that data into not just your own network, but how do you democratize that data to be available for clients to leverage to reach particular audiences across any screen in the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's a challenge. And so kind of just building on that, what are the biggest challenges in linking that in-store and out-of-store data, and how are new advances in identity resolution, clean rooms, or partnerships helping to kind of bridge those gaps, but responsibly? Any thoughts on that?
I can kick it off just kind of dovetailing off of what I was saying before. I think you have all of this data that sits within each retailer. And I think it's funny because a lot of this data previously, before sort of like the rise of retail media networks, was available through a lot of the measurement companies holistically. So you look at how that data was available before, and now as the rise of retail media networks has happened, that data is kind of coming back in-house, which is funny because now we're actually seeing that siloed a lot of these budgets and opportunities. So actually, I think what we're seeing more and more is like the unification of that data. Obviously, clean rooms matter because you want to make sure that you're protecting the data that you have. But I think we're starting to see the emergence of partnership, that it doesn't mean that these things all need to live individually, but obviously you want to, like, that's your gold, is the data. So you want to be careful with how you share it.
Yeah, I would just say, everyone thinks that their data baby is beautiful and unique. And in some cases it is, but right, there's over 200 and some odd networks. And some of them are retail, they're selling a product on a shelf. Data, closed loop, incredibly important, right? I need to show my merchant, I advertised, and I moved product. When you get into some of the other networks, whether it's fintech or travel or whatever it might be, the need for measurement is slightly different. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity in that, right? I want to know that I'm reaching the right person at the right time, but there's still a huge segment that just wants to be inspired, right? Not everything is data and I've got it down this narrow and did they convert, did they not convert? There's a whole part of the ecosystem that's not linear in the shopper journey. And I think sometimes we can become too narrowly focused, but it's also nice to have that opportunity, and that's what programmatic does. It unlocks budgets in a safe way, so you know dollar in, dollar out. So I think we're working towards it.
And then just wanted to build more on the journey here. So Gabby, United's Connective Media is a pioneering example of how a brand can build its own media network, but how do you think about connecting that traveler journey across environments from digital screens to airports to in-flight and beyond? And then what lessons might retail and commerce brands might take from this?
Yeah, I'm glad we just talked about data, because I think data is a huge piece of what we're doing and what we're offering to build brand experiences for our partners. And so we have a really deep and rich understanding of the United traveler. They are researching flights for at least 5 or more hours when they're planning their trips. They are spending 1.5 to 2 hours in the airport on the way to their destination. They're spending 3.5 hours on our flights on average and spending 3 hours with our seat back screens, and we have over 130,000 of those. And the list goes on, and I could spew stats at you all day, but that's not why we're here. And so when we're able to pair kind of like what we understand and know about our traveler, which is what kind of inspired the development of our media network, and pair that with the unique places in which a brand partner can kind of build experiences, it's really powerful. And so when we think about kind of the omni-channel journey that somebody's going on when they're going on their trip, their out-of-home plays a big role in that, because it's from when you're at the airport, you're sitting in the club, or you're at your gate, we have screens, or you are on the plane and you're engaging with our seatback entertainment system, to when you're landing in your destination and you are taking a rideshare car where there are screens that we offer audience extension through. And so we're able to really kind of like create this opportunity for brands to reach someone during the entire travel experience. I think that's something really unique and powerful.
Absolutely. And Renee, we know StackAdapt thinks a lot about the consumer journey as well, and you play a heavy hand at retail media. So how are you seeing retail media networks and out-of-home converge? And are brands starting to view out-of-home as part of their commerce or shopper media strategy rather than just branding?
I think we're having really good discussions around digital screens in general. I mean, that's the beauty of programmatic. But it's that you can turn on and off, your creative very quickly on the fly. With retail media, again, for like a good, prices change all the time. Something's out of stock, right? So how do you make sure that your ad is staying relevant? And that's, I think, where programmatic really comes into that and plays. And then again, how do you make sure it's measurable? StackAdapt at its core was SMB. Right. We also, work with holdcos, people in the room, enterprise, and down to really long tail. And so you need to know that that budget that you're inputting is working, but you also need somewhere you can put that budget. Not everybody has $100K for 4 weeks. So where can you do that? I think digital out of home is incredibly important. And again, that proximity is where out of home comes into play.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think, like, speaking to the moment, I would like to build on that. Just a question for everyone. How is creative evolving in this space, and what makes an effective out-of-home message when the goal is not just awareness, but conversion and, driving, obviously, action, visits, things like that?
Yeah, so I can kick that off. And I think, Renee, you said it really well, which is you want to make sure that whatever is going to be on the screen is relevant in the moment. And relevancy changes like every second of the day, especially when you're talking about products that are going to be on the shelf that might not be on the shelf. And I think we even see that from like the basics of targeting. It's funny, for the pharma brand, I was thinking about how that's been a huge element of like, how do you actually look at where there is supply of a product, from anything from a type of drug in a particular market down to like the actual retailer, which obviously that is CPG, it is everything that is available. It's even thinking about flights. Like, you don't really want to promote certain routes if there's not a ton of flights and things along those lines. So I think, one thing we care a lot about at Vistar is actually helping our clients to run better creative. So, we used to, and we still do, work very closely with creative teams. And so we want creative teams to do their thing. So what we've almost built is, it's a studio, but it's really an enablement team. It's something that helps to take whatever creative that you may be leveraging in other mediums and bring it to life in out of home, regardless of how you want to transact. So if that's in the Vistar DSP, if it's in StackAdapt, or even if it's direct, helping clients to run dynamic creative campaigns that are pulling in anything from, weather triggers to pricing in particular markets, to based on, particular like short-term offers that might be in particular areas. So I think that being able to run better, more relevant creative, but then it's also helping to just make it more interesting. So bringing in elements of 3D and kind of beautifying those screens themselves, because they are physically large in many cases. So it's an opportunity to reach someone with an ad that is larger than an ad that you might see in a more traditional digital medium.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I had a former coworker, and this has stuck with me for years, who always said, "Show me you know me." And I think that's the power of data and the power of creative when it's done right, right? Don't serve me an ad for eggs, or, breakfast when it's like 5 o'clock and I'm trying to think about what we're gonna have for dinner. Like, it's not helpful. right? And don't show me an ad for something that I've just bought, right? Make it be relevant, whether it's time of day, whether it's something closer, in the deli section, new screens, right? Show me something relevant that I'm interested in. And I think, again, that intersection is what is going to really move the needle for the industry as a whole.
To build on that, on the relevancy piece too, I think our brand partners have found a lot of success when they're leaning into the travel mindset or into travel when they're with their messaging. And so whether that be when somebody is sitting in the United Club, when they're on a plane, or even audience extension too, that just kind of really honing in on that travel piece is important, and it's something that helps set us apart. I think the other piece too that's interesting with out of home is how do we think about it as more than just upper funnel? And so we've found unique ways to look at it with a lower funnel lens. I think looking at a B2B brand, for example, you could start with an ad in the United Club to reach business travelers that is more thought leadership based and education in nature. And then by the time that person is sitting on a plane, you could be serving them with an ad on the seatback screen that has a QR code. And because of our fast free Wi-Fi, thanks to Starlink that is scaling on the United fleet today, somebody can pick up their phone, scan that QR code, and actually transact right then in flight, whether that's scheduling a meeting or downloading a piece of content.
Amazing. So many amazing ways to reach the consumer at so many different moments. And I have so many more questions that I want to ask, but we have to end. So thank you so much. Really appreciate hearing everyone's perspective, and we'll bring up the next panel.
All right. To end what has been an amazing session, I would love to invite Bob Lord, and Anna for what I think is going to be a fabulous fireside chat without the fire about what's next for advertising, Horizon. Jeremy did a fabulous job, Bob, sharing all the cool stuff that Horizon is doing in out of home. So,
Yeah, well, how can it not be? Thank you so much for being here. This is really, really exciting, and I think for everyone, and I just can't wait for you to share your wisdom. We've had a really great event today. I just want to tee it up for you because I know you couldn't be here from the beginning, but we covered a lot of areas, AI, measurement, where again, Jeremy did a really excellent job, and so did the other panelists, but talking about kind of how the out-of-home measurement is evolving. We talked about commerce just now. We talked about farm advertising, which is a huge opportunity for out-of-home, and an area where things are really changing fast. And then we talked about big sporting events, and a little bit of tech has been kind of woven into it. But I think having you here now today, wrapping it and talking about kind of your experiences as you've been in the game a long time is going to be really valuable. And we're so excited that you're in out of home too. You sort of wasn't out of home before.
A little bit.
That as well. But again, your career has spanned intersections of all parts of advertising and media, marketing and technology, and you've had some really huge key leadership roles at companies such as IBM, AOL, and Publicis, and now Horizon Media. And over the decades, which is hard to believe because
decades.
You look great, and not like decades.
Decades.
But you make me look very old. I've been probably on half of that journey. But you've really been in the game a long time, and you had a front row seat to some of the most transformational shifts that the industry has experienced, from the rise of digital media to programmatic advertising to the ongoing evolution of data-driven marketing. And I just want to kind of hear your perspective. If you look back, what would you identify as some of the most major, significant pivots or inflection points that have reshaped this landscape since you got in the game?
Well, thank you. Thank you all for staying and being here for the last speaker, I guess. I know that's always sort of a drag and a long day, but what I can tell you is, we're finally at a point. When I joined Razorfish way back when, I won't even tell you when, the promise of doing one-to-one marketing was there. We talked about it. We talked about personalization. We talked about how the consumer needed more. We talked about how we were going to personalize everything. And we talked, and we talked, and we talked. And the reality was the technology and the data sets were never there. They weren't there. We didn't even have iPhones. I mean, it was at the point where we were creating devices. We were actually making physical devices and trying to sell it to our clients. So what I am so excited about now of where we are is this idea that we finally have the ability of doing it. The barrier we have is ourselves in this industry. So some of you may or may not know, I was in the media industry for a very long time, ran a company called Razorfish, sold it multiple times, ended up at Publicis Group, ran Viviki, merged Digitas, went over to AOL, helped to ride the programmatic wave up, launched something called AOL One, sold that company to Verizon, and then I went and took a hiatus at IBM. And I got out of the industry. And it was probably the best, most important decision that I ever made. And the reason was because I learned so much at IBM, from quantum computing to AI to cloud technology to things that are just entering into the marketing world. And when I left IBM, I thought I was going to sunset myself. And ChatGPT came out. And then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, AI was... But the interesting thing to me is I went around and talked to my friends like Bill Konensberg, and I was consulting to people. Our damn industry only got more confusing. There were more companies out there, more ad tech companies, more data companies out there. The poor CMO was drowning in what the hell do I do? And I felt like, as one of the guys who helped to launch a programmatic platform, you know, at the time it was like we're going to make things easier for the marketer. But the reality was we have made it so damn hard for the marketer to do their job, and we're still doing the same crap. I won't say shit. And we need to stop that. We need to stop that. So what I decided to do was to re-engage with Bill Konensberg. There was an identity spine that we had, which I'm sure Jeremy talked to you about. And what we've done is we've opened it up. We didn't have a technology debt. We didn't have data debt. And what we did was we democratized the access to the data. Not only for me as the agency to use it, to make my company run faster, I'm giving it to the media planner and the marketer to access that data, to co-develop how we develop audiences, to co-develop what our media plans look like, to co-develop what the measurement reports are, to have instantaneous. I mean, why does it still take us 3 weeks to get a campaign report back from an agency? Why? Because we're taking data in, we're manipulating it, and we're sending it back out to the client saying, we have your answer for you. That all needs to change. When I was at IBM, I ran a supply chain management product called Sterling, and I'll get to your question in a second.
This is great. Keep
and
going.
This was all about how a global supply chain manager could manage a global network for shipping container companies. Okay? And at their fingertips, at any moment in time, they could call up a SKU level on a container car to know where that supply chain was coming from, where that product was coming from. And we can't tell a marketer how their campaign is running last week in real time. That is atrocious. That is shame on us as an industry. So I am here to help change that. And the good news about this is what I just heard on the panel and what I know about out-of-home and the leadership that's coming into the out-of-home world is everyone is opening up their data set. We finally are able to tie the physical and digital worlds together in ways that I believe we can bring to our clients delight and great value exchange between the brand and the consumer finally. So whoever did the example about I shouldn't be getting eggs when I'm going for my meals, I still get that garbage. I'm sure all of you do. We have to change that or else we will be extinct as an industry. So, did I answer your question?
Not entirely, but I think you answered so many other questions, and I think it was a really great tee up. And you said a lot of things that I think we all think about and we grapple with. And I think Bob Leary said at one point, I think at an out-of-home conference, he said, you know, man has landed on the moon. Why haven't we figured out out-of-home measurement? And it's a little bit of that, right? We have all the tools, but what are we doing with them, and how do we actually use them efficiently so that we can help our clients and ourselves?
And part of the problem is, you know, this idea that scale is great, okay, and that more scale means better is a misnomer when you start talking about data and you start starting to understand an audience, the value is the understanding of the audience and scaling the audience. Not necessarily about either your buying power, how much technology did I buy, how much data do I have. That doesn't really matter when you're the marketer, right? What matters is, do I know my consumer better than someone else? Do I actually share my first-party data with third-party data sources so I actually confidently can provide, surprise, and delight the consumer better than someone else? And we are at that moment where we have technology and data assets where we could do it. But the only way we get there is if we're open. If we create open ecosystems. So the second thing I learned at IBM was, number one, to spell quantum. But number two was this idea that an open ecosystem spurs innovation and makes you more competitive. Okay, from the world we came from, or that we all grew up in, no. I own the data. I own the technology. Even at AOL, I own my programmatic platform. I didn't share that with anyone else unless you bought it from me. But this idea that we can collaborate in an open ecosystem, it's been proven over and over and over again in the software industry. Why is Google as successful as it is? Because it supports an open ecosystem. It supports people collaborating on their platform. It supports people developing things that they normally wouldn't. Even Apple, from a standpoint of developing apps, there's an open ecosystem there that you can contribute to. So all of the idea that we need to, as a marketing and media organization, industry, we need to open up our ecosystem and share, collaborate, so we can actually provide better insight on behalf of the marketer.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think as an industry, as out of home, we need to collaborate more with each other because we're, only stronger when we're together and when we're leveraging all the data and all the assets that we have rather than just kind of going to at it one-on-one and make it complicated and sometimes also expensive by using too many different solutions. But you learned how to spell quantum, and I'm sure you learned a lot about AI, and we've talked about it here this morning. Erin Lanuti from Omnicom shared, just a whole new world of AI search and how that changes everything for the marketer. They can't, get in front of the consumer or control it in the same way. And there's just like a lot of problems, and I think nobody really fully understands what it is and how it's going to change the world. But I think a lot of people are a little bit excited and very afraid of how AI is going to change our industry and the world in general, and are we all going to go obsolete? So with your wisdom and the experiences that you had at IBM and where you sit today, how should we think about that? Should we be scared?
Well, we also said TV was dead when digital came in. We also said that no one was going to trade programmatically, and now we're spending $3.5 trillion through programmatic. So the hyperbole is always sort of the not right. My perspective on this is our jobs are going to change. And quite honestly, to tell you the truth, the younger consumer has already moved the cheese on us as marketers. Okay, they're not on Google search, they're not on Bing search anymore, they're over at Reddit Answers. And if our brands aren't showing up on Reddit Answers right now, shame on all of us in the marketing who have marketing responsibilities, because your brands need to be showing up on Reddit Answers. And how do you do that? It's a content strategy, it's a social strategy. You need to get there. How are you showing up in the retail media networks? How do you know your consumer better so you can actually get there? There's a really, really important pivot that we need to make, which makes our job much more complicated as marketers, because we need to go through the transition of understanding what services do we provide that are much more focused as a business partner. Now, you and I have been in the industry a long time, me a little bit more, but I remember when you were an agency of record, my God, you were an agency of record. That meant something. It meant that you were helping to drive the client's business. I don't know what's happened, but now when a CMO changes, they sneeze and they change their agency and they change their media company, and you are down a path of just going down FTE hell. That's not where we need to be. That says we're not adding value. But now we have an opportunity as you sort of integrate in with data structure and you bring value as either a media company or a creative company, and we'll talk about creative in a second, you now become an essential growth partner to the company. And therefore, you will never be extracted out of that organization. So if I take our Blue platform, our open ecosystem Blue platform, and I partner with a Smartly or I partner with a VidMob to bring in my creative services, and I plug that into the company's ad tech stack, which plugs into their customer service application, which plugs into their ERP system, I am embedded into the client in a way that we're very sticky. And why is Salesforce what Salesforce is? It's because they started out with an Excel spreadsheet and then got you onto their platform. I was there. Mark Benhoff walked into the Razorfish office, and as soon as we clicked up to 100 people on the Salesforce platform, he came and sold me an enterprise license. And now the whole world is using Salesforce. So there is something about us providing value outside of FTEs. And now FTEs will not go away because you're still going to need managed services, you're still going to need the expertise, but we're going to go up the funnel. So what we need to think about this AI tool set is as a companion. It's a thought partner. It's not going to take away our jobs. It's just going to make our jobs easier. Well, actually, it makes it harder, but it makes it easier, right? I don't have people coming in just putting spreadsheets together and PowerPoints for me. What I have is a machine to help me think through reams and reams of research reports and providing me the top 5 insights that the machine has given me. It tells me where it came from, it tells me the source it got it from, and it provides me with a conclusion or insight that either I believe or I don't believe. If you do prompt engineering right, you can say, look, I want you to be my thought partner for the next hour. And the machine only asks me one question at a time, and I will respond to that question. It's an internal brainstorming engine. I now have my laptop and another screen, which just has our tool. It's called Agent Q. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. Agent Q. And I ask Agent Q questions as I just go through the day. And I come through, I'll ask Agent Q, hey, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, what would you do? Comes back to me, it's a little Bobish every once in a while, it gives me answers back that I would say. So it's kind of getting to know me a little bit. But it is a really fundamental time to do it, but it's a big mind shift that this is not replacing me, this is about how I become better.
And understanding how to use it, I guess. But Erin this morning talked a lot about, like I said, about AI search and how brands had a harder time reaching consumers and getting their message out. And there's a lot of fraud too, right? Like you don't actually, if you don't have a really good tool set, your message might be misconstrued and something totally different might get out there. And there are tons and tons of tools for how to do that too if you want to sabotage. The good thing with out of home, one of the good things is that we don't really have to worry so much about that. We're very physical, we're in the real world. You know what message is gonna show up unless you're being hacked. And if it's static, it's not gonna happen, right? So for out of home.
The TSA puts out new news too.
Boo, boo, boo. But still, it's a medium that like has the physical nature, the contextual nature, and the location part of it is interesting. So coming back to out of home, so AI might actually be, or the threats that AI in a way possesses if you're not using your platform, could be an opportunity for us. So if you think about out of home, and in this new world of marketing and the ability it has to connect different platforms in a sense too on the consumer journey, what are the things that excite you and innovations that you think can help us, and how should we position ourselves in this?
Yeah, I'm so excited about where out of home is going, very excited, but I think it's a crawl, walk, run kind of approach. So we don't have to get as dramatic as AI needs to be serving our content. I think we have to really go after the programmatic wave, which sounds like we're starting to scale that better than we ever have before and optimize our payment across that. That's a big boon, right? The second, I think, is all about creative optimization and where we're going with that. And at Horizon, we're doing a lot of testing in the creative space and how we optimize on creative. Harken back to when I first started in the industry, creative and media used to be together. Like, it's essential. The more evidence points we have about media and creative being together, the more that you actually drive lift and conversion. And then I actually think there's the new chapter, which I think is really the most exciting part, and this just depends on who your out-of-home partner is sort of this advanced measurement piece where you're actually tying the physical world to the phone and sort of the transaction that's happening. So it's a little bit of the location. And I actually think that piece of it getting tied into our platform and our planning process will actually drive more revenue for out of home, especially with the customers, like a Spectrum who, has very specific DMAs that they're in and they have a campaign. They want to actually drive messaging in certain DMAs differently than others. We're just starting to work on that creative side, but I need the measurement piece to actually convince them that that's actually the right thing to do. So there's a ton of opportunity here. And I just think it's a matter of, first, let's get our maximization of programmatic done. Let's get our creative business going. And then the measurement stuff will just reinforce that second pillar in a way that is then a number one consideration, just as well as you think about broadcast TV or video. And I don't think it's there yet.
No, I think that's something. I think the industry has a lot of opportunity, but it has two reasons, right? It's not media in the sense that media is normally. It's about location, it's about context. Jeremy said it really smart. I've never thought about it that way. We don't actually own our own audiences, right? Like other media platforms do. We kind of hope that they will show up, and for the most part they do, and sometimes even more than we wanted to when we're in traffic jam, for example. But I think we've always been sort of a little bit on the side in a standalone medium, and the opportunity now is to really weave it into a broader mix, and I guess measurement and technology is going to help that.
That's why I'm saying that third pillar of cracking that nut, which I think you're on the cusp of doing, is the piece that will get you into the beginning of the planning process, so you really get your fair share when the $100 is cut. Because I think sometimes it's an afterthought unless the client's very specific to you to say, I want 10% or I want 20% put it out of home for this particular campaign. So the way that all these models work, which is really, really kind of interesting, is that they learn, right? So the fact that when we give out our Blue platform, we give a client instance out, so they own the data, but more importantly, they own the model. Right, so if the model learns that out of home is having a bigger impact on the campaign, the next time the model gives a recommendation on what to do with media planning, it's obviously going to take that historical information and it's going to actually change its planning model going forward. We don't have that plumbed in on a consistent basis yet. So that's the opportunity, and the reality is the folks that get there faster are going to actually get more of the share.
I love that. Never thought of it that way, but we, like everyone else, need to think about how we can get the bigger share of the model. How do we do that?
Well, look, I think in all of these planning processes now, the AI tools and the LLMs, the large language models, are going to become more and more common. So the same question I would say is, how do you get involved in Reddit answers? Well, you got to get into the engine. How do you get into that engine? Well, you change your content. You actually put it in question and answer format versus you put more content out on your website. You actually engage with influencers. There's ways of actually making sure you show up. So it's just a matter of strategies about how are you getting into the planning process through these LLM tools.
Reddit is amazingly interesting, right? Because they've gone from being this like small in the corner, God knows what they're doing, to really taking over and taking share from large media platforms, and not just large media companies, but Facebook, Instagram, Snap, right?
I know, but that's where the consumer's gone, right? That's where they've gone. They've provided utility and ancillary conversations that they can't get somewhere else, that they feel is honest. And then us as marketers and brand leaders have to figure out how we get in that conversation. And that's not an easy answer right now.
And us as an industry definitely need to figure that out. So we should all talk about that at some point, because we can elevate ourselves quite a bit. All right, Ashwini is giving me, unfortunately, I haven't even asked my questions. You're so good.
Hopefully I addressed some of them.
But I have a final question for you, but please talk about whatever you want. But again, there's a lot going on right now. Everything is evolving. The economy is evolving, culture is evolving, organizations are evolving, and expectations are shifting, and consumers are definitely different. So with your retrospect look and then looking forward, what do you think are going to be the most fundamental rethinking and innovations in the next 3 to 5 years? And everything is moving really fast now, so.
I mean, the innovation curves are happening every 3 weeks. It's absolutely insane to try to keep up with what's going on. I would say, if I project out, I think the closed ecosystems of some of these very large advertising companies are going to really be challenged. I think if you're a lazy marketer, it's very easy to go spend on those big platforms. I think we are going with our tools and what's happening in the retail media networks and the data sets that are out there, we're going to challenge that status quo. And I believe that you as a marketer, and I call yourself a brand marketer, you will know your customer better than you've ever known them before. And for those that sort of run with these tools and the data sets, it is going to be magical. And in a very different way. We will redefine what scale means. It's not bigger is better. We will define scale as how do you scale audiences from a technological standpoint, and how do you bring them micro messages and one-to-one marketing. We are going to take our craft back, and I feel really, really good about that. It's even interesting. Think about who our new CMOs are. I mean, they're data people, right? I mean, prior to Norm DeGrev at General Motors, it was a brand-led institution. It is now a data-led institution. And they're not our client. I just know Norm for a really long time. But his questions are very different, right? So that just changes the whole landscape. So no longer do you just want to write a check to a black box, because he's going to, after a while, say, you know what? I can actually go over here and I can get more insight to that. So I'm going to put more money over here because I'm getting results, and I'm going to give you less money there. So this idea that the big tech guys are going to consume this all, I think is a misnomer in general. And I think that's the big challenge that's what I'm excited about.
Well, that is exciting. And I think it's like a whole new world. We just need to sort of figure out how to address it. Or maybe not a whole new world, but a very different world from where I think we thought it would go 10 years ago.
Oh, no, for sure.
Total
and
power shift.
honestly, a year from now, I'll probably be up here giving you another story on this, but it's about whether or not, and the only piece of advice I keep giving to all my clients is, take on one of these engines, use it every day. Stop using traditional search, use something like Perplexity or Claude, use it for a month, it'll change your life. Then once it changes your life, it'll change how you behave in your organization, and you'll start questioning all the old stuff you've done. We just brought in, I don't know if people have heard about Agent Space, which is Google's Gemini tools. They allow you, I think they're calling it now Gemini Enterprise, but they allow you to take all the Gemini tool sets and put it behind your firewall. It has changed the entire, and we only have 100 people on our pilot right now at Horizon. It's changed their entire life. I have more people banging down my door asking me to get on the Gemini pilot, because from the legal department to the finance department to the creative department to how people put media plans on, they're using these Gemini tools in ways. I mean, research reports, you're getting podcasts on research reports, which is amazing, right? So when we send out our research reports now to clients, we send a podcast with it because Notebook LM can generate a podcast. So those things are just, those innovations are just gonna happen. The reality is though, you have to be friends with these technology partners, whether it's an Amazon, whether it's a Google, or whether it's a Meta, because they're going to innovate out faster than us. And if you don't open up and have an open ecosystem, you can't invite them in. If you're closed and you basically say, no, it's my data set, I'm not sharing any of my data with you, therefore I'm going to do it all myself, you're going to be a laggard. So I do think some of the people in our industry have a lot of technology debt, have a lot of data debt, and that's going to slow them down.
Well, thank you, Bob. That was amazing. I think the work that you're doing at Horizon is so exciting, fascinating, and this gave a lot of hope. So thank you for coming. I hope you will come back next year. We can
Absolutely,
kind of
I'll be
reminisce
here.
on
Thank
that.
you for having me.
Really great to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bob, that was fantastic. Thank you. Anna, you tried your best to...
I did, and...
Thank you for having this fantastic discussion. I would love to invite Jill now, on behalf of Anna and I and everyone else, for hosting us and for letting us put this event together.
This one, well, yeah.
I'll make this one work. Thank you. Thank you to the OAAA and the 4As for hosting this event at our office. We're thrilled to have you all here and hope everybody will stay for some cocktails and mingling. Thank you to all the speakers. I think there was a lot of really great inspiring thought leadership from agency side, brand side, sellers, and we're really excited for the year ahead. So thank you so much for joining us.